I'm not sure if I'm in the right place to post this, but I've held on to this story for the last 6 years because it sounds crazy, and I got told not to talk about it ever again. I went camping 6 years ago with a now ex-boyfriend of mine. The campsite that we picked was beautiful. We were able to drive in through some rough trails. The spot that we picked was next to some hiking trails that were not very far away from some natural hot springs and a huge waterfall. We were in the middle of nowhere. Absolutely no one was around. We set up camp next to the car, went hiking, soaked in the hot springs, came back and had dinner. It was all very normal, until we woke up the next day. I need to give some context as to how we slept that night, so you can understand my confusion. Before we went to sleep, I put our food cooler and the stereo that we brought in the car and locked it. I put the keys in the front pocket of my backpack and put the backpack next to my sleeping bag on the far side of the tent, away from the door of the tent. My boyfriend at the time slept nearest the door of the tent with a gun next to him. We woke up the next morning and I felt fine. I had slept pretty hard, and from the inside of the tent, everything seemed normal. When we got outside, our campsite was in absolute chaos. The fire pit that we had made was absolutely ruined. The cooler had been thrown, and food was scattered all over the place. The stereo was smashed to pieces, laying next to a tree. All of the car doors were open, including the trunk. We stood there for a minute in silence, just taking everything in. The woods felt off now. It was quiet, and not the beautiful campsite that I saw yesterday. Everything about those woods felt wrong now. My ex accused me of not locking the car the night before, and that an animal had gotten into our stuff. I promised him that I had locked it, and I went into the tent to grab the keys from my backpack, but they were not there anymore. I found them later on the ground right next to the car. We quickly threw everything in the trunk and just left. My boyfriend was quiet and would not talk to me about what had just happened. He finally spoke up when we were almost home and told me that he had a dream the night before about something kneeling over him in the tent, holding his gun and just staring at him. When I tried to ask him more questions, he got quiet again and said he did not want to talk about it and that I should not talk about it anymore either. I tried to forget about what happened, but I just can't. Something really wrong happened to us in the woods that night. I have two stories that involve the same general location. Here is the first one. This happened to my friends and I several years ago. We used to play a lot of paintball during our high school years. We lived in southwest Michigan. It was a smaller redneck town. It had lots of forest and farmland, but we got lucky and got permission to use this large plot of land about 10 acres around for paintball. This land had deep forests, sand dunes, and a few abandoned structures near a train track that hardly was ever used. So we began playing about every single week for several years. We would get to that field at about noon and fuck around all day. We started to notice that once the sun began to set, the forest became really tense. Like, we could not explain it, but you felt fine all day. But once night started to fall, you felt eyes watching you. You felt like something was just near, and it was very upset that you were in the woods. This feeling was so intense, we would often cut off our game short once nightfall came. One weekend, the three of us decided to take a night trip. We wanted to play night games, but we have been putting it off because no one honestly felt comfortable staying out all night at this location. So we wanted to scout the place out and see what nighttime really felt like out there. We get to our usual place, the buildings near the tracks, and get our gear on. This time we left the paintball guns at home though, and had a few machetes instead, and my oldest friend took his dad's handgun with us as well. We also had a flashlight and one pair of night vision goggles. So we get moving through our normal playing areas into the thick woods that had no trails and pretty much no sign of human interference. The three of us are on edge because the woods are so damn still and quiet. There are no bugs, no birds, no nothing, no sounds at all, just pure silence. The tension that I mentioned earlier was so thick in the air, and each of us were pretty much in kill mode. We are moving really slowly and hunched down, making our way over a ridge. Our friend with the night vision goggles freezes and whispers to himself, "Holy fuck, what the fuck, shit. We all freeze as well and pull out our weapons. He hands the goggles over to the guy with the gun, who then takes aim and tells us to get the hell out of here. We just bolt as quickly as we can, and he fired his gun twice and then follows us. We run back about maybe 2 football fields of length before we stop. Both of them are scanning the area, and they look like they have seen a damn ghost. I keep on asking what they saw, but all they could do was keep moving back to the buildings where we left the Jeep. After we get back and get ourselves back in the Jeep, they still are not talking. They just keep on checking the mirrors. I am pretty spooked, and we get back to the closest guy's house. After heading up the stairs, they finally told me what they saw. The first guy was scanning the ground when he saw something hunched over, and he said he thought at first it was just a coyote. But it turned, and it had a longish face that wasn't quite dog, but almost human as well. This thing smiled at him, and that's when he tore the goggles off and handed them over to the guy with the gun. So he spots this creature that was now moving towards us at a pretty damn fast pace, hence why he fired his gun. After shooting, the creature ducked out of his vision, and that's when he ran with us. The first friend was so spooked that he never went back to play paintball with us there again. We never did hold a night game, and we, after that experience, always packed up and left right before the sun would set. Here is the second story. So it's about a year after we see this creature in the woods. I have been dabbling in some occult magic. I make contact with Lilith after several attempts, and overall felt really open to energy and unseen things. I was heading home, which at this time in my life was about an hour's drive north of the paintball field. I get on the road that takes you up to the field, and as I pass by the woods, I just feel that heavy tension, and I think back to that night that we explored and decided to stop the Jeep. I get on outside and call out to this pressure that I feel, and I basically let it know that I am not scared of you anymore and that you can't hurt me. After feeling proud of myself, I get back into my Jeep and I head down the road. I don't even drive for 30 seconds in total, and I suddenly get hit with this horrible, negative energy. I feel as if 2 knives are shoved into my gut on either side of me. The radio that was playing just fine now goes staticky and basically faded out, and the windows literally frosted over, and I could not defrost them. I felt held and stuck in place by this painful feeling, and even though I could not see anything, I just had such a strong feeling that something was sitting in my passenger seat, right next to me. I get about halfway home, and it just stops. My radio comes back on, the frost leaves, and the pain is finally gone. It was so damn strange and surreal, I didn't know what to think. I get home, and I'm talking to my grandmother. She is in the kitchen, and I am sitting at the table. Behind her is the door to the garage. It's a glass door that you can see through pretty easily. So I'm talking to her, and she moves, and in that glass door, I see a tall figure with a red face, smiling ear to ear, looking down at me. I am literally getting chills just typing this, to be honest. So this figure is there for just a few moments, and then it's just gone. I am so damn spooked I head on to my room and spend most of the night doing banishing spells and trying to cleanse myself from whatever it was I provoked and brought back with me. I was about 14 years old when this happened to me. I was on vacation in the Dominican Republic, near the border to Haiti. My cousin and his friend showed me around his hometown, where my mom and my uncles grew up. There were huge grass fields in the back of our house. I can see a rather big-looking tree in the horizon. I asked them about it. Everyone goes awkward and kinda murmurs to themselves, "We don't go there." They tell me that a witch lives in the tree, and that she enslaves anyone who wanders near. I start laughing and make fun of them for being country bumpkins for believing this shit. It takes me about 2 days to convince them that there are no such thing as witches. We walk towards the tree. The grass is tall enough to cover our vision. About 200 yards away from the tree, this thing is absolutely massive. It makes the Animal Kingdom tree look small in comparison. There is a makeshift barbed wire fence around the tree. We go through the fence and continue walking towards the base of the tree. The tree seems to be hollow, but it's huge and we cannot see inside. There are little huts around the base of the tree, small enough for Ewoks or something. That's how small they are. I hear a low grumble come from inside the tree. I look towards the tree. I see a face looking back. The eyes are white. The mouth is open in a silent scream. I hear a pack of dogs coming from behind the tree. I'm still staring at the face. I hear my cousin's friend scream. I look towards him. There is a 3-headed pit bull running after him. I shit you not. We dash towards the barbed wire. I lift it out with my shoulder and stop at the bottom of the fence to make a gap large enough for everyone to just run. I manage to close it just as the pit bull slams into it. It missed me by probably only a couple of inches. We all dash out of there. We ran for about 10 minutes straight while listening to the dog bark at our heels. We make it back to the house. We tell everyone the story. Parents laugh at us for being kids and get into trouble. Later that night, my uncle came up to me and my cousin. He told us, never go back there. We have an understanding. We do not bother them and they do not bother us. Your grandfather did it as his father before that. Do not anger them. This is the maddest I have ever seen my uncle in forever. Over the next 8 years, I would ask him about the tree in the face. He would never answer, and my cousin knew better than to speak about it. 10 years passed by. My uncle died, and the very next day, the tree actually disappeared. In about 2 weeks' time, all the grassland is gone and replaced by dry earth. I heard that all of my cousin's friends died from illness or bad luck. I comment this to my cousins. They all laugh nervously and try to dismiss it. The last conversation I ever had with my cousin, he told me, stop asking about it, Anon. She doesn't like it. You don't know how lucky you are. She does not want anything from you. 2 months after this, my cousin disappeared for 2 years. When he came back, he had no memory as to where he had been or what he was even doing. I don't even want to know anymore. I was between around 9 and 12 years old when this happened to me. When I turned up to my mom's houses, there were 3 houses there. 2 of the houses looked fairly new. The big barn house looking thing was completely run down. The windows were smashed everywhere, etc. I never saw anyone in there, nor in any of the other houses. Every now and then when I would walk past, I would see something move in there. Mostly, you could just see old sewing machines and the like, but sometimes you would see a shape that would usually stay around for a while and then move. One time, me and a friend went to go and check it out because he did not believe me. It's getting fairly late. We get there and immediately see something run past the door inside. I hear a loud sound that sounded like a tractor starting. We get out of there. We force another poor friend to join us, and one night, we set out to explore the house properly this time. The old broken door creaks open horribly loud. I hear a grinding noise coming from upstairs. Nobody wants to go in, and the second I took one step further, the lights on the floor above flickered for a second. I hear a loud tractor noise. We run like hell. About half a year later in the winter, I see footprints go in and out of the house. No cars or people or tire tracks or anything, just footsteps. I try to peek inside. That grinding noise starts again, so I just go home. At around age 12, I see that there is a car parked outside. I walk up to it and try to see if anyone is home anywhere. I see nobody. I yell out, "Hello?" I hear a voice pretty close by. It sounds like it's only a few meters behind me, pretty close. I turn around, but there is nobody there. I keep on looking around and I still can't see anyone, so I leave. A few days later, I see people outside carrying boxes and junk and stuff. They all look rather distressed. I go up to a middle-aged guy. I ask him if he knows what happened to the barn house. The barn is fine, no? I ask him if he's the original owner. No, my mother was. Everyone has slowed down, and is looking at me all weird. Was? Look, we got a lot of stuff to move out of here, and we all just want to go back home. I leave. As I look back, they are all watching me walk away. I get out of there one last time. I never went back there again. To preface the story, I am a paramedic, and I have been for about 10 years. Working in emergency medicine, you get to see the weirdest and the worst of people, so it's not too uncommon for these types of stories to exist. However, in my 10 years, I have never experienced pure terror incarnate like I had about 6 years ago. I will not be revealing specific or identifying details as it pertains to privacy and HIPAA. This may be a bit long, but I hope it's worth the read. About 6 years ago, I moved to another city for work. I work for a 911 ambulance service that responds to calls in the city, as well as the county, which had a few other small towns. The city itself was not a large city. It was sub 100,000 people. Working for that service required working 24-hour shifts. It wasn't particularly busy. Maybe you get like 5 to 10 calls within 24 hours and generally get some decent sleep at night. The city was a pretty rough place as the oil industry had boomed there, which drew all sorts of folk from around the country to work in the oil fields nearby. One night in January, me and my partner, who was an EMT basic, received a call in the next town over. It was about 2 a.m. when the call came out, and the only information that we had was that a person in an apartment called 911 after hearing the downstairs neighbor screaming for help. We responded emergent as the details were very limited. When we arrived on scene, police and fire department were already there, and we were getting ready to make an entrance into the building with them. The person who called 911 was there and told us which apartment she heard the screaming coming from. We attempted to pound on the door at first to get the resident to come to the door. When no one answered, the fire department got ready to spread the door and make entry. Luckily, the landlord showed up and gave us the keys to get into the unit normally. As we opened up the door, the creepiness started. The apartment was pitch black. Not a single light was on, as if no one was home. Police entered first, and with our flashlights, we followed along. Looking around the apartment, the kitchen and dining room, they all looked like a hoarder's nest. I am not exaggerating when I say that there were literally like 5-foot-tall mountains of garbage, food, and dishes in the kitchen, and the same thing in the living room, but with magazines and clothes and garbage in the living room. This meant that there was only a very narrow walkway to navigate the apartment. Officers proceeded down the hallway ahead, where the bedroom and the bathroom was. One of the officers stopped at the bathroom door, as there was a light shining from underneath. The officer opened up the door and just stood in the hallway. With a flat tone, he said, "She's in there." I walk in first to the bathroom. The first thing I notice is the peculiarity of the light in the bathroom. It was a very pale yellow light coming from a single bulb on the ceiling, similar to those old heat lamps that used to be common in bathrooms. The light gave off an odd vibe, as it was just such unnatural light. The next thing I noticed is the lack of anything in the bathroom. No floor mats, no toilet cover, no towels, no knickknacks, just nothing. It was empty, except the vanity which contained the sink. On top, in the bowl of the sink, were approximately 20 to 30 makeup bottles piled up. Some were opened and leaking, causing there to be powders and liquids everywhere. The last thing I noticed was the body of an elderly woman lying naked in the tub. As I walk closer, I can see her lying in her side, nearly in the fetal position. Her skin is pale, and there is about 8 inches of water in the tub. Looking at her face, her eyes are closed, and her head is against the bottom of the tub, with her mouth and nose completely submerged underneath the water. My partner steps in behind me. He suggests that we just call the coroner and inform them of the body. 2 officers pile into the bathroom behind my partner, so that there are 4 of us in this tiny little bathroom, with me next to the lady in the tub. With me being who I am, I decide to do my due diligence and at least make sure that the lady is dead. I kneel down next to the tub and reach my arm inside and put my fingers on her neck and attempted to check for a carotid pulse, In an instant, without warning or the slightest hint of movement, the woman springs out of the tub with the agility and speed of a feral cat. The only reaction I was able to manage was to just stand up as quickly as possible, and I just stood there, staring at her. She stared back at me, eyes as wide as can be, before she started screaming at me. She attempted to cover herself with her hands as best as she could while sitting in the water still. I quickly look around and notice everyone else who was in the bathroom with me had bolted out of there, not a single soul in sight. I tried to steel myself and try calming the lady down, telling her who I was and why I was there. She denied screaming and told me that she does this every morning as she has some kind of a joint condition, and soaking in warm water apparently helps to ease her joint pain. Now at this point, I have my doubts, and I have to question this woman's sanity. I question her regarding self-harm and address what potentially could be interpreted as suicidal behavior. She denies all of it. The next step is to determine her mental capacity and ensure that she is in the right frame of mind to make reasonable and appropriate decisions. She answers all my other questions appropriately, and at this point, per the law, she is able to refuse any and all care as she is mentally sound. I ask her if she will at least allow me to check her vitals so that I can be sure that she is healthy and I can add it to my report. She vehemently refuses and tells me to get out of her house, which she has the right to do. I acknowledge and have her sign a refusal of service form. As I leave the bathroom, my partner, the two officers that were in the bathroom with me, along with two other officers and firefighters that were waiting in the apartment, are just staring at me with eyes wide and gaping mouths. They are all speechless. I don't say a word, and we all leave the apartment. Once we all got outside, I had the most uneasy, uncontrolled fit of laughter. My partner and the officers start laughing too. I thought I might have shit myself. My partner told me later, all he remembers is seeing her move, hearing me say, "Oh fuck," which I don't even remember, and running out of the bathroom. I wish I could say I never saw this lady ever again, but that would be untrue. This one should be a little bit shorter since you already have the backstory. Like I said after this call, I was able to just laugh about the situation once my heart stopped racing. I figured I would never have to see this lady ever again, and that gave me comfort. I told this story several times to family members, friends, and coworkers too, just because of the sheer shock value. This part of the story, I've only told to a couple of people, because most probably cannot stomach it, so be warned. About 3 months after the first call with the Bathtub Lady, I was working with another EMT basic partner. Not the same one as before, but he is well aware of the story. So the day is going by like normal, and nightfall comes around. I'm hoping to get some sleep, as generally, night is a little bit calmer. Each of our stations have a few bedrooms with twin beds to allow us to sleep at least somewhat comfortably. I take off my boots and lay down and doze off. I always keep my radio turned way up and by my head so I can wake up if we get a call. Sure enough, tones drop on the radio and I wake up. Looking at the clock, it's around 4 a.m. Radio traffic requests the ambulance for a welfare check on an individual who has not been seen for a while. Me and my partner get up, put our boots on, and start responding to the address. As we get closer, I start recognizing the area. Before I even see the building, I tell my partner, "I swear to God, if it's the same fucking lady." He just laughs and we continue. As we pull up on the scene, sure as shit, same damn building. At this point, my heart starts to race again. A few officers are already on scene. As I get out of the ambulance, one of the other officers comes up and tells me, "The lady that we are here for has a friend that works at the gas station nearby. The friend told 911 that the lady usually comes and visits him every day, but that the friend has not seen her in a few weeks." The officer also tells me that there is an odor coming from the apartment complex. If you work in EMS or have been around such, you know what that means. If not, then I will not tell you just yet. I ask the officer if she is familiar with this person or has heard the story of the last encounter. The officer tells me she is not, but her two co-workers behind her were on the original call with me and are smiling, but not saying a word. I tell the officer who the person is, and our last run-in with her. The officer just raises her eyebrows a bit and says, "Okay." So, we approach the apartment complex yet again. As I open up the main door, you can immediately smell the odor permeating through the entire complex. We walk downstairs to the door of this lady's apartment. I bang on the door a few times and shout, "Ambulance," but we get no response. Officers bang on the door, no response again. We try to get hold of the landlord again to give us access, but he is unavailable. Over the radio, I request the fire department and request that they bring the door spreader. The fire department arrives and they come downstairs and set up the door spreader. If you don't know, a door spreader is a tool that the fire department places between the two door jambs and use a lever to start pressing the door jambs apart, freeing the latch from the door frame so that you can get in. As they finally get the door open, that awful wafting smell spills out of the apartment. Same thing as last time, pitch black in the apartment like no one is home. Piles of garbage all around the apartment, 5 feet high, that barely allows you to move through. Though this time, it's a little bit different. There are thousands of flies all buzzing around. Again, the officers enter first, with us following along with our flashlights. One of the male officers gets down the hallway to the bathroom and opens up the door. He looks back at me, shakes his head, and continues forward. My EMT partner, who is pretty new, is right behind me. I turn to him and tell him to wait in the hallway, and that I will let him know if I need him. I was trying to be nice and spare him. The officer continues down the hallway toward the bedroom. At this point, the anxiety is increasing inside of me because now, we are in uncharted territory, and once again, I have no idea what we are going to find. The officer eventually makes it to the bedroom. I see him shine his light into the bedroom, then uses the bend of his elbow to cover his mouth and nose. He waves me over. As I walk towards him, the smell only gets stronger and stronger with each and every step. I peer into the bedroom with my flashlight, and that is when I see her. The bedroom is set up so that the bed is right in the middle of the room with the head pressed against the wall. So there is some space on either side and at the foot of the bed. Or, at least, there would be, if her floors were not filled up to the height of the bed with clothes, magazines, books, food, and garbage. At the foot of the bed, there are 2 large 4-foot-tall piles of random shit that at the base are probably 4 feet in diameter. I know it's hard to visualize, but picture 2 large conical-shaped mounds side by side at the foot of the bed. In the tiny space between the 2 huge mounds and the foot of the bed lies Bathtub Lady. Now, this lady is a very small old lady. When I saw her the first time, she weighed maybe 90 pounds. She is also a white lady. Stunned for a moment, I stand there next to the officer and just look. This is the part that gets grotesque. Bathtub Lady is laying perfectly on her back, with her arms folded up and crossed in front of her like you would see a skeleton doing in the movies. Bathtub Lady's skin looks almost like paper. It is dried out and shrunken, turning black and rotting. The level of decomposition from her is one I had not seen before. Her hip bones were visible where the skin had cracked and receded. Her kneecaps were coming through her skin. A few ribs were just barely visible, poking through the skin on the sides of her upper abdomen. Her hair was beginning to fall out. Her lips were gone. Her eyes were gone. I got a bit closer to look. All I kept thinking was, if you wake up, the officers probably are gonna draw and shoot you in the head. I walked a little closer to look. She was almost perfectly preserved, like a mummy. There was absolutely nothing left of her eyes. The sockets were completely empty, with the exception of maggots crawling around in the sockets. From behind me, I hear a couple of quiet, muffled gags. I walk back out to my partner. I tell him, "Sorry, man, but we need the body back and I need your help." Everyone walks outside to get some fresh air. The officer who was in the bedroom with me, he gagged a few more times outside, but luckily he did not vomit. The only good thing about this is that we had recently been given some really nice PAP respirators from FEMA for a recent Ebola outbreak. My partner grabbed the body bag, and I grabbed the respirators. We put our gear on and walked back inside. The officer that was with me, like a fucking champ, came back inside as well without a respirator and held the flashlight for us. Me and my partner had to spend 10 minutes just clearing out all the trash, so we had enough room to put the body bag down next to the Bathtub Lady. Once we got enough room, the sketchy part came. If you have ever seen a body with that amount of decomposition, it is very brittle. We attempted to move her over as carefully as we could, as to not break anything. However, when we attempted to move her, she was stuck. I could not figure out what was going on. I was at the head. My partner was at the feet, trying to move her over. I put my arms down her back and neck to support the head so it did not break off. I got down to look as I lifted to see what we were getting stuck on. As I lifted, I saw, but it was already too late. As I lifted, the skin on her back was stuck to the carpet, so as I lifted, it started peeling off of her ribs and her spine. We had no other choice, as we were unable to cut the carpet at this time. As we lifted her up, all the skin came off her back and stayed stuck to the floor, almost like some sick chalk outline, which is when I saw it. What seemed to be like 1,000 maggots crawling around on the inside of her skin, between the skin and her back. We moved her gently into the bag, luckily not breaking anything. We got the bag out and into the ambulance, where we would then transport her to the funeral home, with our windows rolled down and emergent, so that we would not have to stay in that ambulance for very long at all. So, that's my story of the Bathtub Lady. Sorry for the gross details. What we figured is she died shortly after our first encounter with her, and that we may have been the last ones to see her alive.